So this is standard item for young kids: speed, distance, and time. We are, in some sense, in a fool's paradise by only working with phone numbers. I'll tell you why. We talk about motion. So you can either think of it as a car driving a car along, or I don't know, some way, or something moves. And you ask, in the next, no, you have to, now you have to fix unit. Now, to make it simplest make life as simple as possible for all of us, the favorite unit of time is hour, right? I say it's hour. Distance is mile, because then you can talk about MPH. I don't think there's any abbreviations from minute per second and what, you know. I mean, it's meters per second or feet per second. You don't. What are you talking? Yeah, MPH, everybody understands, so we use that. Now, let me, right off the bat, I want to tell you why we're in very good shape, so long you're stuck with whole number. If I fix units, hour, you realize you can talk about minutes. What's a minute? 1/60th of what? There ain't such numbers, right? Once you say it's mile, then you don't talk about feet, meters, whatever. Because what's 1 foot? 5,028 or 280 of a mile. But you don't have fractions, you see? So you don't ask that question. See how simple life is? So you're completely stuck with that basic unit, and that makes life very simple, because now I can actually tell you what speed is. Suppose motion travels the same number of miles each minute, each hour. That's a big supposition. I'm not saying it can be achieved. All I'm saying is suppose there's something like this. Let us say V miles per hour. Then we say the speed of the motion is V MPH. Now, under any other circumstance, we cannot talk about speed. That is the problem of school mathematics. With this fact, of course, is never made clear. And not only not made clear, but it's blown out to be a major topic called rate. Middle school and 5th, 6th graders, 6th grade teachers know. Rate is supposed to be a big topic. Not only a big topic, a topic that most kids the scale get silly. The primary reason is because nobody can tell you what rate is. And So, but you keep insisting on discussing rate, big problem. Nobody knows what he or she is talking about. Neither do the kids. The only kind of speed is a kind of rate. Speed is the rate of motion. Moving lawns, by the way, so you know, I think this appeals to you, right? The rate of mowing lawns, the rate of water flow into a tub, the rate of painting a house, and the rate of motion, which is speed, right? These are just your favorite topics, I hope. And they like, the books like to believe that they can talk about this at will. Whereas in fact, the only time you can talk about it is when you know the motion has constant rate. And the constant rate, then you can talk about it. But for high school mathematics, you cannot talk about rate as an abstract concept. You cannot do it until you have calculus. That's the sad truth. Therefore, be careful what you say to your children. Don't scare them. Don't say, well, we know what rate is, and so on and so on. We don't. Just say, well, in this circumstance, then I can talk about the rate of the motion, namely constant rate. Constant rate. There's only, V is fixed number. Just see? Yeah, same numbers, right? So no, it's always one fixed constant, 60 miles per hour. Yeah, what makes the problem so bad is that in everyday life we say, oh, I'm driving at 60 miles per hour. Okay, now let me work you up to the fact that you never drive at 60 miles per hour. You agree? Yeah. Not in California. There's a great, I'm going to try the cruise control. It's slow, you know it slows down. Did you try it? Cruise control and freeway? Yeah. There are no flat freeways in our state, but you could go to the Sierra Nevada. This cruise control 60, 58, 56, 54, and then valid, they try to maintain it, about 54. There's no such thing. Constant rate is a fiction of mankind's imagination. Nevertheless, it's very convenient for giving problems to kiddies. So that's why we do it. So once you know, I'm making fun of it, just so you know it's not a serious topic. Meaning that don't take rate, discussing rate in schools. You have to know that you're treading on very thin ice. Be sure you're careful with what you say. Make them understand it's very restrictive. We're just forced into the fiction of having constant rate. And let's understand that. Don't try to achieve conceptual understanding. Yes?
Could we use average rate?
I'm sorry?
Average.
Yes, that you can do.
Yeah.
But average rate is a very complicated concept. You know why? You know what average rate is, right? The term by itself makes no sense. You want to make sense, what do you say?
Distance divided by time.
No. What you want to make say some. You want to make sense of this phrase? All right, try to make sense to me. See what you do. You say average, right? Average of what? Average rate. The terminology of average rate is absolutely meaningless until you say the average rate from time t1 to time t2.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried it on your students? What's their reaction? And why? First of all, tell me what their reaction according to your experience is. You try to define average rate from time t1 to time t2. What do they say? Alan, have you tried? Yeah. What do they say? They just say,
pretty much.
All right. You know why? Because at their level of mathematical sophistication, they never come across anything that depends on so many things. You say speed, okay, good, 60 miles per hour. 58 counters. Good, just count 58 counters. 10 miles, yeah, just 10 miles. In other words, they are used to having input of one single idea. Average rate depends on how many things. You have to worry about how far they travel.
Yeah, right. Each section.
But what makes it worse is that you cannot even say in an hour. It's not an hour. If I start at 1.3 hours, then I'm counting to 2.3 hours. That's the average rate. You're talking about, suppose you say the time lapse is one mile, even 1 mile. Right? You cannot say, look at the average rate over an hour. What hour? Is it from 1.3 hour to 2.3? Or is it 8.7 to 9.7? Or is it 1.1 to 2.1? Or is it 5.2 to 6.2? Which one are you talking about? Have you said it? No, you haven't said it. So average rate makes no sense. So to understand average rate, they'll take into account 3 things. How much distance traveled? What's the starting point that you start to count? What's the end point that you try to count? Students are not used to this such a complicated input. They don't want to hear about it. Therefore, you can try. You should, in fact, I'm recommending it, you should try. Because no matter what it is, at some point they have to learn to enlarge their power of abstraction. That they have to recognize that at some point, life is no longer simple. Life is going to get complicated. And you have to crack it open. Let them know your life is going to change. And to learn more. You have to do it. Even if they don't understand it, even if they make faces, you force it a little bit. Because a year later, when another person tries to force feed it, they're much more willing. They will be much more willing, you hope. Right? So education is not just about doing things they want to do. Education is not a democratic process. It's both. You have to judge how much they can take, and you always try to feed a little bit more than that. Not much more than they rebel, then self-defeat. Right? Just enough to crack open their minds. Okay? You hope you can go on. But it's so coming back to what is speed, is just constant speed, it's just a complicated subject. But for whole numbers, you see, I get away scot-free like this. That's the whole complete correct definition of constant speed for whole numbers. Because you don't ask me, right? Same number of miles each hour, you don't ask me. What happened for the first 5 minutes? But there's no such thing. I only know whole numbers. 5 minutes, 1/12 of an hour. But you don't know what 1/12 means. You cannot ask that question. And everybody is very happy. Get it? This is the correct definition of constant speed in the domain of whole numbers. The whole numbers are wonderful. You bypass so many obstacles. Right? So every hour you check, that's good enough. Right? So that means what? So distance traveled. So assume. As I said, unless I have this assumption, I can't do anything. So assume constant speed V, V and pH. So distance traveled in, let's say, 5 hours is what? Well, each hour how far you travel?
3
3 miles, right? In 2 hours,
V.
2 times
2V.
V, right? V plus V plus 2V. 3 hours and 5, it's what? V plus V plus V? 5. 5. Now, I can either abbreviate it to D, which is probably not good. So I just keep this long pointed thing as one object. You know this is nothing but one single number, right? This is that's a number, that's a whole number. So this whole number, they got a 5 times V. Which of course, if I want to, I can write it as a V times 5, right? Okay, times 5. Put it across because it gets awkward. Okay? Now you have a number, remember? You have a number. It's a product of 2 other numbers. Then what's another name for this? Quotient. Yes? That's our definition of division, right? Therefore, it comes to pass that if you have constant speed, speed V, yeah, you equal to this number divided by this number. Huh?
Shouldn't that be 5 miles?
No, 5.
5 miles.
No, I'm trying 5, yeah? No,
Miles per hour. 5 miles per
no,
hour.
right? V times 5. It's 5 hours.
The distance. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The 5 miles.
5, you see? How fast do you travel in 5 hours?
Right, yeah.
It's equal to V times 5. 5 indicates the hour, number of hours, right? So what is it? What is this formula? It's not a formula. You're rewriting something. That's the definition of division. Now, if you look at this, without the inversion, without the twist, you have this, is it right? What does it say about the number 5? It says number 5, the time you travel is what? What is this? That divided by V, right? Correct? So I want you to realize that the formula should make it realize, distance is time. Distance is, how do you say? Distance is,
Rate times time.
Rate times time, right? And then rate is equal to distance divided by time, and time is equal to distance divided by speed, by rate, all that. These are supposed to be sort of the holy grail, right? So they all have to get it memorized. But it's not. You're rewriting this one simple fact into 200 version, that's it. You're using definition of division, which means what? Which means that unless you do division correctly, you'll have to force your kids to memorize.
Yeah, something.
Yeah?
At the beginning, when you said 5, written down here, 5, distance traveled at a constant speed in 5 hours is 5 times v miles.
Yeah.
But to me, you skipped a little bit of a step.
No,
wrote-
yes, I did.
Yeah.
It's actually V plus V plus V.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant in terms of the units.
No,
Well, I wrote 5 hours times v miles over miles per hour, right?
no.
Huh?
In each hour, how far you travel?
V miles,
Yes.
yes,
In 2 hours, how far you travel? V plus V.
right,
3 hours? V plus V plus V.
right.
So that's exactly what it is. And
Yeah.
no steps skipped.
Yeah. I just
Correct.
meant in terms of the how, why did the hours disappear?
Oh, no. Don't look at that for a moment. Just ask yourself, what when hour doesn't disappear? That 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4, 5 hours. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
It's
no,
built in. You're adding 5 times. It didn't disappear. It's exactly there.
That's not the
No.
rate equation, that's the distance equals distance.
I'm sorry?
So it's distance equals distance, it's not the.
Oh, it's distance.
yeah,
Travel same number of
Yeah,
miles each
okay.
hour. Say V miles in each hour. Here is miles,
uh-huh,
right? But in another context now, you say, but you call it V and PH. That's the distance you travel in an hour. Right? Just like, the number one can be, depends on context, it could be something else. Yeah, I just want you to know this. So, which means you have to do division correctly. Then you see that these things are just, I hope you say utterly banal, right? I mean, just once you know this, is there any deep thought involved in this? None whatsoever. Just V plus V plus V plus V 5 times. Right? So now I should rewrite this so that it will display the logical structure better. Don't use 5. I use 5 just because to gain credibility. So suppose motion travels 3 miles in each hour. So we start origin measuring how far it has gone. Then the distance traveled in T hours, right? Each hour you go V miles, therefore, so V plus V plus P times, right? Therefore, TV. TV. Television. Right, so this is T miles. So you want to say, how do you get the number V? Well, look at it now purely as 3 numbers. This number is this number times this number. Right? As in this form, come back again, right? This is the number. Then we sometimes prefer to write it as the division. So therefore, that's the case now, which means, so this implies, yes. Well, in this form, okay, I have to write here. T is equal to distance traveled in T hours divided by V hours, right? But I hope you understand, I mean, I'm just dividing numbers. I really don't care what they are. When you have numbers, I divide. Later on you say, oh, that's what it means. It's better that way. When you have so much baggage tagged along all the way, it just makes it impossible to think. So that's one thing. But you can also write it. You can also write it as VT. Right? Write it as VT then. Right? First number is a division of this and this. Good? Therefore, now from this equation says what? V is equal to, well, wait, so yeah, V, sorry, V, there's a mistake. You caught it, right? Hey, stop. Sorry. That's called a misprint.
Yeah.
V, well, V, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I really hesitate to do things. But the V, the number V here, clearly plays a dual role, right? There's no question about the fact that this is, what is it? Yeah, this is V minus, there's no question about it, right? But now you, yeah, okay, so it's sort of, after the fact, you see that V is not just the number of miles in each hour, the travel in each hour, but V is also the distance divided by hours. Then you begin to say, oh, V is also miles per hour. So in this case, I think you better be careful what you write. If you want, you write MPH, but then no, well, I just leave it like that. But I hope you realize that I'm right. That this is a very complicated subject. I told you it's complicated. Right? You understand? It's just complicated, period.
I have a picky notation thing that I wanted to ask you about, that I have a neighbor who noticed.
You want to write it?
I'm just wondering, I think I can just ask it. Since we're in whole numbers and you've been so careful to be using the division operation as opposed to the division bar, are you using it here on purpose? Or are you using it
God,
to
yeah,
save
right,
space?
you're absolutely right. I'm using it without thinking. There's a total collapse, yeah. Yeah, you know, you go to the second nation, you forget. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Not my style.
I didn't even notice, by the way.
The neighbor was on it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm not changing it.
Huh?
I said, I'm not changing it.
You're not, yeah, you don't have to, right? It just yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. That is entirely correct. Now, this one. Good. Is this better now for everybody? Now, by the way, well, my only purpose here is to make you realize something. There's a very clear-cut distinction between it, what you must memorize and what you don't need to memorize in mathematics. No even buts about it. The multiplication table, what you just have to do. The addition factor by adding single-digit numbers, you just have to do it. The subtraction fact about 1 or 2 digit numbers minus a single-digit number, you just have to do it. Pure memorization, and we all know apology for it, just because all knowledge begins with memorization. Just think about that. Written language, think about that. You want to be cultured person, you say that can be cultured without memorizing anything, just forget it. That doesn't happen. So everything is based on some brutal memorization. On the other hand, these things that students are supposed to memorize, distance is time times speed, and speed is distance divided by time, and time is distance divided by speed. All this is supposed to be memorization. It's not. Nothing of the kind. So this realization might motivate you to, next time you teach it, try to explain a bit more so that they can get some idea why their learning is what it is. I'm always trying to make students see that there's reason behind everything. If students begin to see that, believe you do enough to make them believe you that in mathematics there's reasoning. The consequence is that they begin to get the idea that mathematics is actually learnable. Right now, our students do not believe that mathematics is learnable because the way it's written, the way it's happening, it doesn't look learnable to me.